My name is Camilla. I'm currently 29 years old, which is the age when most people are considered working adults. However, I'm pursuing a dream that I'm determined to achieve while juggling school and part-time jobs. I grew up as an orphan, losing both of my parents at a young age, and without any relatives or siblings. I'm what they call a lone wolf. Despite that, I have found wonderful colleagues who share my dreams. And although my finances are tight, I lead a fulfilling life day by day. Today, after finishing school, I headed straight to my part-time job at the home center. As usual, I was busy with restocking the shelves when I noticed a young boy and girl, probably in their early elementary years, entering the store with their guardian. The girl stood tall and confident, while the boy seemed a bit timid as he followed along. I wonder if they're siblings? Seeing them, I couldn't help but be reminded of my own childhood at their age. Back when I was in elementary school, a boy named John transferred to my class. His arrival alone made him the center of attention, but John had a cute, almost girlish face, a small frame, and a very quiet personality. The boys in the class quickly started teasing him, saying things like, "You look like a girl." They would surround him, take his belongings, and playfully toss things around. Sadly, they were the type of boys who held some influence in the class, and most of us simply turned a blind eye to the bullying. Regrettably, I was one of those classmates too afraid of those boys to stand up for John. But one day, when it was my turn to be on duty, I submitted the class journal to our teacher and returned to the classroom to find John sitting alone at his desk. "What are you doing?" I asked, breaking the silence. It was the first time I had spoken to him. I had wanted to talk to him for a long time, but I was always conscious of the other boy's gaze, preventing me from doing so.
I'm studying.
John replied softly. I peered into his notebook and saw that not only had he taken meticulous notes of today's lesson, but also made notes for the upcoming topics. "You're studying ahead. That's impressive." "I sometimes forget to do my homework," I complimented, surprising myself with the words that came out. John seemed a little embarrassed by the unexpected praise.
Thank you.
He mumbled, still not lifting his gaze from the textbook. "Do you enjoy studying?" I asked. He nodded and then added in a hushed voice,
I want to become a doctor, so I'm working hard on my studies.
Hearing about John's dream made me inexplicably happy. The following morning, as I entered the classroom, I saw the usual scene. The boys gathered around John's desk, causing a commotion. I want to help him. My determination grew stronger, but my feet felt glued to the floor, making it difficult to move. What a pathetic person I am. I saw John looking so happy just yesterday. Despite these thoughts, I couldn't help but watch as the bullies took something from John.
What's wrong with you? Always studying like a nerd. So boring.
One of the boys taunted, holding up the notebook that John had studied so hard on, just like the one I saw yesterday.
He never talks and is such a loser. Let's rip it apart.
The boys attempted to tear the notebook apart. Then, a loud voice echoed through the classroom saying, "Stop." The room fell silent, and the boys turned their surprised gazes toward me. That's right. It was my spontaneous outburst that stopped their actions. Feeling like there was no turning back, my legs trembling, I walked over to them and took the notebook back from their hands. It's way more lame to mock someone's hard work. "Stop getting in the way of John's dreams," I scolded them. The boys were left speechless, seemingly taken aback by my unexpected actions, and they didn't utter a word in response. After returning the recovered notebook to John, he once again said softly,
Thank you.
Looking at me this time. From the next day on, I worried about what kind of harassment the boys might direct toward me, but the other girls supported me, and I managed to avoid any trouble. John remained reserved as ever, but he actively spoke to me. Just when I felt like John was starting to become more comfortable in the class, his parents, who were transferred frequently due to their jobs, moved him to another school. I never saw him again and never heard any news about him since then. I wonder if John is doing well while working my part-time job. These thoughts crossed my mind for the first time in a long time. It was 10 p.m., and my part-time job for the day had come to an end. On my usual way home, something crossed my path. It was a quick movement, and I looked down to see a kitten. After a tiring day of school and work, it's so lucky to encounter such a cute kitten at the end of the day. Thinking that, I approached the kitten slowly, but it got frightened and ran away. Oh, I guess it ran off. As I tried to keep an eye on the kitten, it stopped in the middle of the road for some reason. This is bad. It's the kind of situation that often happens in anime or dramas, but I always thought I could never do something brave like that. However, when it happened right in front of me, I had no choice but to act. I jumped into the road without hesitation. How much time passed after that? When I woke up again, I found myself lying on a hospital bed. The nurse noticed me immediately and called the doctor. My vision was blurred, and I couldn't move my hands or feet properly. As my consciousness gradually cleared, the doctor explained what had happened. Someone who was nearby had called an ambulance for me. By the time the paramedics arrived, the kitten was gone, so it likely escaped safely. The car that hit me had driven away. I was stuck in traffic when taken to the hospital, and the surgery saved my life, but there was a high chance that I would have some residual effects on my hands and feet. Although I had made the decision to act, I couldn't catch up with the sudden change in my circumstances. Does that mean I might lose the ability to walk? I asked, and the doctor nodded sympathetically. Unable to move my hands on my own, I had to rely on the nurses to feed me. Eating was difficult at first, but gradually, I managed to swallow my food. Even when it's tough, it's true that you get hungry. Without the ability to move my own hands and with no family around, I had to rely on the nurses to feed me. Just recently, I took it for granted that I could move my hands to eat, but now, I couldn't do it anymore. Having the ability to move my legs and walk wherever and whenever I wanted felt like something that would continue indefinitely, and I never once considered that there might come a day when I couldn't move them as freely as before. While my legs were still there, no matter how much I tried to move them, they wouldn't respond like they used to. One day, I was having dinner, being fed by the kind and gentle nurse, who was about the same age as my mother. She stopped feeding for a moment and listened to my story. I wanted to become a nurse and was attending school for that. After graduating from university, I ended up getting a job in a regular company, but deep down, I always wanted to work in a job where I could help many people's hearts and bodies. But now, that dream will never come true. I never wanted to end up in the hospital like this. As I spoke, I couldn't help but burst into tears, and the nurse comforted me by gently patting my back, offering her support. I had saved the kitten's life by acting as a shield. It shouldn't have been meaningless, but I always acted recklessly without considering the consequences, causing trouble for myself. While I saved the kitten's life, I couldn't find a way to protect my own body. I couldn't help but think of various futile possibilities, like if there was a way to save the kitten's life and protect my own body at the same time. Then, unexpectedly, the nurse said something that caught me off guard.
Actually, it might be a difficult surgery, but there are ways to alleviate the after effects on your hands and feet. The doctor will explain everything to you later. So, cheer up.
Alleviate the after effects. Does that mean I might be able to walk again? A glimmer of hope appeared in my heart. But how much would the surgery cost? I had already spent a lot on tuition, living expenses, and now hospital fees. The money I had saved was running out. And even if I underwent the surgery, I wondered if there would be any job that would hire me with the after effects. A complicated surgery might cost tens of thousands of dollars. Maybe expecting anything positive was just wishful thinking. To avoid feeling deeply disappointed later, I tried not to have excessive expectations. After a while, a young person, different from the usual doctor who attended to me, entered the hospital room. He was also a physician, and he introduced himself with a cheerful smile. He explained the surgery to me, but it was not a simple fix. He emphasized the importance of dedicated rehabilitation after the surgery. Though the surgery could significantly reduce the after effects, it was a major procedure that I couldn't afford. Thank you, doctor, but to be honest, I don't have any savings left at my age. I can't possibly afford the payment, so I didn't want to decline the surgery, though. I was willing to endure rigorous rehabilitation if it meant regaining the freedom to move my limbs again. Despite this deep yearning, tears involuntarily streamed down my face as I faced the reality of having to refuse the surgery.
Camila,
The doctor said gently to me as I cried. Knowing I was in no condition to reply, he continued,
the surgery fee has already been taken care of.
"Heh." I had no memory of making the payment. I didn't have the money to pay for it, and I had no relatives who could pay for me. Could you be mistaken? I asked, thinking that he might have confused me with someone else due to him being a new doctor.
No, there is no mistake. Camila paid for it when she was in elementary school.
The doctor said. I was baffled. There's no way a child like me could have paid for something like that. I have no recollection of it and can't understand what you're talking about. Then, the doctor extended his name tag toward me, making it more visible. John. It was a familiar and nostalgic name. "Oh, John?" I asked.
Yes. Long time no see.
He replied. I couldn't recognize him as the cute and girlish John from our school days. He had grown up and was now unrecognizable. Come to think of it, he did introduce himself as John at the beginning. But John was a common name, and unfortunately, I couldn't afford to pay much attention to a doctor's name at that time.
Do you remember this?
John handed me a weathered notebook. This. I was puzzled.
Yes? Because you protected me back then, I was able to continue studying and pursue my dream of becoming a doctor. Your courageous act had a profound impact on me, and without it, I wouldn't be here fulfilling my dream. It's my irreplaceable payment to you.
John was referring to the single notebook from years ago, the one-time payment for my surgery. He continued,
I've regretted not being able to thank you and leaving after transferring schools. Now, let me repay your kindness by helping you.
Tears wouldn't stop streaming down my face. I had avoided helping him countless times, and I hadn't done much for him. Yet, this one act of mine had brought such kindness back to me. A few days later, my surgery was successfully completed. After 6 months of intensive rehabilitation, I regained the ability to walk and use my body. Thank you so much. I bowed deeply to John when he came to see me off as I was discharged.
No, thank you.
John also expressed his gratitude to me. With the help of these hands and feet you saved, I will do my best to help others. I had told John about my dream of becoming a nurse.
I think you would be perfect for it. When I heard about a woman who got seriously injured while trying to save a kitten, I wondered if it might be you. And when I found out, I was truly surprised. Not many people have the heart to help others without seeking anything in return. You're amazing, just like when we were kids.
I blushed, not used to receiving compliments like that from others. However, seeing John fulfilling his dream, I felt even more motivated to work hard. Thank you. I'll come back to the hospital as a nurse, I said.
I'll be waiting.
John replied. And with that, I took my first steps into the future, using my own feet.